We are going to be in the book of Titus. We're in Titus 1 this week. Jose will be in the second chapter next week. And who's finishing the third chapter? DK. So that's good. The Lord loves you so much, He's going to give you a break from me. So anyway, all right. We're going to do an introduction to Titus. There's a lot here, so we're going to try to cover a lot of ground. Now, this is from N.T. Wright, the short letter to Titus assumes that Paul has left him in Crete. Again, this does not fit with the itineraries we know from Acts. So, if the letter is genuine, we would have to assume a substantial further period of work in the central Mediterranean region, as in 1 Timothy. One of the important things will be to appoint church leaders, particularly people who will be able to address the problems of the local culture. That's what leaders deal with. Leaders deal with problems. Preaching is easier and more fun than dealing with problems. Just to let you know, okay? Church members must be reminded again and again that part of the point of the whole Christian movement is to be a family that engages in good, creative work in the wider community. This is what it means, good works. What matters? What will create the best impact for the gospel is if this otherwise strange and apparently subversive family. Now, why does he use the word subversive? N.T. Wright, who's, by the way, the greatest New Testament scholar alive today, uses the word subversive because Christianity is subversive, because it undermines dark powers that hold people captive. It's why Islam would say the Bible is illegal in some countries. It's why in Islamic countries, they don't let Christians freely gather. It's why they try in communist China to run in on house gatherings. Why are they so afraid of a non-violent people? Because it's subversive to the people that control or want to control or think they're in control of other people. So make no mistake, Christianity is a threat to darkness, and it is subversive. It's not about anarchy, but it is subversive. It's important to know that. Now, let's go back. This apparently subversive is seen to be making their street, their village, their town a better place. Disputes and divisions are inevitable, but so far as possible, these are to be avoided. They will eat up energy and do nobody any good. So he's talking about quarreling, fighting. It's often a waste of time. This is the stone cold reality. Paul considered Titus to be a spiritual son. Titus, who was a non-Jewish origin, is not mentioned in Acts in relation to Paul's missionary journeys, but is mentioned in his letters as a proven long-term co-worker. These are the passages where that's found. Titus was also entrusted with the difficult task of improving the relationship between the church in Corinth and Paul himself. Think about how deeply integrated Titus was with Paul. Imagine you guys are all mad at me, and then I bring Abner in to broker a peace deal between you guys and me. That's the kind of pain that Paul is going through with the church in Corinth, because he didn't fit their cultural expectations of what they wanted in their pastor, so to speak. Ministry is really painful and really difficult. Just to let you know that. Titus was also entrusted with the difficult task of improving the relationship and organizing the collection in Macedonia. This is before Zelle and PayPal. So the fact that they would entrust him with money, that's cash money, that means that he was trustworthy. So think of what Titus is being entrusted with. Titus is being trusted with relationships and resources. That's another thing that leaders broker. We are stewards of. We're not owners. We're stewards. This is important. And in the stewardship, is your stewardship advancing the gospel? Is it good? Would you be someone who, if you were to get extremely wealthy, would the world be a better place? You have to ask yourself that in terms of stewardship. Some of us, the answer is no. Some of us, the answer is maybe. And some of us, we're becoming the type of people that the Lord can really trust. Okay? Titus worked with Paul over a long period and received instruction from him. Since Paul called him son, Titus was probably several years his junior. Finally, Titus developed his own ministry and was not constantly dependent on Paul. In other words, Paul was Titus's mentor and shaped his understanding of Christian ministry, which is very, very important because of Paul's rich understanding of the Old Testament and the Scriptures. Titus and ministry. Titus accompanied Paul to Jerusalem, where the apostles Peter, James, and John affirmed Paul's ministry to the Gentiles. One of the things that I've found with people that are supposed to be a significant role in our lives is that often people who are supposed to play a significant role in our lives will be with us in significant moments of our lives. Unless there's some people that their timing is off. They're not bad people, that they just don't pray before they do things. And sometimes they're not places they should be because they're preoccupied with something that they want to do and they're not where they're supposed to be. That's a whole nother thing. And so as Christians, we have to learn that we should pray before we just do something. Just because you have the money to do something does not necessarily mean you should do something. You should be prayerful in your planning and in what you do and when you do it. Because it's your job to discern where you're supposed to be. What if you're supposed to be somewhere, but you're preoccupied going somewhere else? Then you miss where you're supposed to be. Okay, Acts 2. In Acts 2, you know there's Cretans in the upper room? There's people from Crete in the upper room when the Spirit of God is poured out. There's some things you can't catch on the live stream. I love the live stream. I'm all about it. However, it's your job to discern where you're supposed to be and when. It's part of leadership. Titus was there at a specific moment in Paul's life, and Titus was there for Paul during difficulties in his life, because in the kingdom, relationships are reciprocal. It's give and take. It's not all take, and it's not all give. Relationships in the kingdom are not a one-way street. Okay. Titus also served Paul as Paul's representative to the church in Corinth, where he helped collect relief funds for the poor believers in Jerusalem. So Titus was ministering cross-culturally. Because of his character and dedication, the Apostle Paul and the churches held Titus in high regard. The author, Paul. Now, it's very, very probable that Paul was not the one that literally wrote the letter, but Paul is the one that is speaking and someone else is writing. Paul would have written this letter sometime in the mid-60s AD, between his first and second Roman imprisonment. The greeting includes a lengthy treatment of Paul's apostleship that indicates the letter may have been intended for a congregation and not merely an individual. That's important. Now, the purpose of the letter, he says it in verse 5, so we don't have to try to figure it out. There's a whole lot of stuff the Bible tells us that we don't have to try to make it up or figure it out. We just read it. It's right there for us. It's important to know the Bible interprets the Bible. And so if we let the text talk to us, many of the questions that we have will be answered if we just keep reading. Okay. This is why I left you, this is Paul talking to him, in Crete. You are to set straight all the remaining matters and to appoint elders for every town as I charge you to do. So Paul is literally sending Titus into conflict. Imagine I say, okay, let's contextualize it. All right, DK, I'm leaving for 2 weeks. I'm going to give you a list of all the dysfunctions in the church, and I want you to call and have a 20-minute conversation with each person. DK is probably like, well, I'd rather preach a message than do that. This is the hard work of real ministry. And real ministry is confronting the dysfunctions, it's confronting false doctrines, it's confronting bad behavior, it's confronting things in the Christian community that are not Christ-like. And that's the role of leaders. That's the responsibility of leaders. Now, when you become a father and a mother, you see this as natural. And it feels less contrived. Like I don't psych myself up like, okay, I got to talk to Justice today. I got to correct him. You just rebuke him and he has to take it. And when you love people and you're committed to loving people, it's not really difficult to say something difficult for their benefit because you actually love them. Now, if you don't love them, or if you don't like confrontation because you have some insecurities in your life or some traumas in your life, that's a whole nother story. But for people who are healthy and mature, this is a part of ministry, confronting things that are detrimental to the well-being of the whole, right? If I have 3 kids and one of them's going buck wild, I'm going to remove the one that's going buck wild and let the other 2 peacefully engage with each other. And so Paul sends Titus, or leaves Titus in Crete to deal with these type of situations, which we're gonna get into. More concerning the purpose. The letter is written to one person, but the intention was that its content should be made available to the church in which that person worked. The letter supports Titus's authority to carry out his ministry. This is very important, which was to establish elders on Crete and to stop the influence of rebels who were threatening the church with delusional teachings. This is important. The church is still in the formation stage. They don't have 2,000 years of church history. They don't have a website with all the core doctrines. They don't have the Apostles' Creed on the screen on Sunday. This is things that they're battling out and fighting for in real time. So there's a major battle that's going on, that's being waged in the spirit for the life of God's people. Titus is also to encourage all the believers in godliness based on God's grace. He is to teach them how to behave towards outsiders, to defer to rulers, and to be ready to give materially for mission. Place, Crete. Crete is the largest of the Greek islands, and it is the 4th largest island in the Mediterranean. Ancient Crete was known for their mercenaries and dishonesty. Mercenaries literally lived on the island of Crete. It was so bad that Rome had to send Roman ships and people to stop them, because that was what this place was known for, which we're going to get into this. And they were known to be liars. Also, Paul's going to address some of the culture there, and many people today would cancel Paul for what he says about the Cretans. They would get really offended. They say, you can't say that, Paul. You can't make generalizations like this. That sounds racist. Paul doesn't care, and he quotes one of their own prophets, because the best critique of a community always comes from within the community. Because nobody knows the community like the community. It's why it's funniest when black people make fun of black people or white people make fun of white people, because they know the idiosyncrasies and the craziness of the community. Okay. The reputation for dishonesty and moral laxity is the most famous strand. This is actually what Paul references in Titus 1:12, where he quotes a Cretan poet traditionally identified as Epitomes, I don't know how to pronounce that. But anyway, that's a legendary 6th century BC figure. Cretans are always liars, evil beasts, and lazy gluttons. This wasn't Paul's own invention. It reflects a genuine Greek stereotype. The Greeks even coined a verb, kretsin, which meant to lie or to deceive. The reputation was widespread enough to become proverbial across the Greek-speaking world, similar to how certain nationalities get stereotyped in later eras. The reputation for violence shows up more specifically around piracy and mercenary warfare. Pirates, they rob people on the sea. There's a problem with that in Somalia today. Okay. Crete was known in the Hellenistic period as a source of skilled mercenary soldiers, especially archers. Think of snipers today. Context, right? Who served in armies throughout the Mediterranean. The island was also a notorious base for piracy for centuries. Organized Cretan piracy was significant enough that Rome eventually launched a military campaign. So this place was so known for mercenaries, the most powerful government on the face of the earth at the time, the earthly government, I should say, launched a military campaign in 67 to 69, the war under Quintius, specifically to subdue Crete and to end the role as a pirate stronghold. Now this is right roughly right before the fall of Jerusalem in 70 AD. So that's around the same time when all these things are happening. Now, Titus 1:1. Paul, a bondservant of God and an apostle of Jesus Christ, according to the faith of God's elect and the acknowledgement of the truth which accords with godliness, in hope of eternal life, which God, who cannot lie, promised before time began. This is important. We're learning something real important and real foundational. And Paul is reminding Titus that God cannot lie. Now, God cannot lie, not because Paul said God cannot lie, but because God revealed his nature to Paul. It's not like God is accountable to Paul, he has to live up to what Paul said about him. It's actually what God revealed to Paul about himself. Paul exists to serve God, and that is being expressed by him being sent as an apostle of Jesus Christ, not for. Of. From him. Let me give it to you this way. Justice is of me through Sarah. Zoe is of me through Sarah. Elijah is of me through Sarah, and I caught all three of them. Paul is an apostle of Jesus Christ. He is a doulos, or a slave, and an apostle, a messenger, an ambassador, an apostle. His service to God is being sent by Jesus Christ. He's sent by Jesus Christ, with Jesus Christ, and for Jesus Christ to manifest and reveal Jesus Christ, which he's going to get to in a minute, which is important. Very critical. We learn that God cannot lie, which means he is free from all deceit. He is sincere. He is trustworthy. He is not only the truth, he is truthful, which means truth overflows from who he is. It's uncontainable. Just in hope of eternal life, which God, who cannot lie, promised before time began. Before Chronos, before time began, God promised eternal life. That life is manifested or revealed in due time. In hope of eternal life, stick with me, which God, who cannot lie, promised before time began, but has in due time, kairos, manifested or revealed his word through preaching. That life is manifested or revealed in due time through preaching, which was committed to Paul as an apostle. The purpose of preaching is to reveal or to manifest the logos, or the word. The purpose of preaching is the message of preaching, and that is Christ. This is very mission critical. There is no other foundation that we can build on. Everything else is sinking sand. The church is not built on gifts. The church is not built on marketing. The church is not built on personality. The church is not built on money. The church that Jesus is building is built on Jesus. Does he use money? Sure. Did he give us gifts? Sure. But it's not built on. It's built by those things. That helps, but that's not what it's built on. Now Titus, watch this. But God in due time manifested his word through preaching, which was committed to me according to the commandment of God our Savior. To Titus, a true son in our common faith. Titus here is a true son, or a genuine and sincere son. Teknon. So he's a young son of Paul. He's not a huios yet. It's important for us to know where we are. No shame in that. That's okay. That's okay. That's what fathers do. Fathers, they give identity and they give direction, and then fathers also give location. Sometimes we don't like that, but... Okay. For this reason, this is Paul again, I left you in Crete that you should set in order the things that are lacking and appoint elders in every city as I commanded you. Paul tells Timothy why he left him in Crete. Knowing your why is very helpful. It's very difficult to fulfill an assignment you're not clear on. This is, you have to know, what is God asking of you in this season? Maybe you're in a learning season. Maybe you're in a serving season. Maybe you're in a growing season. One of the things I find, one of the ways people grow is, one of the ways we grow is when we respond properly to the season we're in. One of the things that stunts our growth and slows our growth down is when we do not respond to the season we're in because we want to be in another season. In other words, we think we're further than we are, and all we do is slow ourselves down, which is counterproductive. Instead of just admitting where we are, even though it's painful, that's the fastest way forward. The slowest way forward is wanting to be someone else or somewhere else. And I know because I felt it in some severe ways. Okay. If a man is blameless, the husband of one wife, having faithful children, not accused of dissipation or insubordination, for a bishop must be blameless as a steward of God, not self-willed, not quick-tempered, not given to wine, not violent, not greedy for money, but hospitable, a lover of what is good, sober-minded, just, holy, self-controlled. Dear Lord, it seems that there's a lot of pressure. The first thing Paul references for the qualification of a bishop is his character. He doesn't talk about his ethnicity, his education, his economics. It's all about his character. His education isn't even mentioned. And Paul is pro-education. He's like a walking education. Many people break with their character what they have built with their gifts. The church isn't built on gifts, it's built on Jesus and built by gifts. Gifts and education are helpful, but a few bad choices can destroy a lifetime of education. You could have a business degree in Harvard, like the PE guy. You can do a couple bad decisions and be in a jail cell. You can go from a penthouse in the city to a jail cell in Central Bookings with a few bad decisions. So character is very important, especially when it relates to caring for and leading and helping others. This is having one's passions or tongue, hand, and eyes at command. That's what it is to be temperate. I'm going to read that again. Having his passions, that's your loins. You know what I mean? Yes? Your loins, your tongue, that your tongue is talking about your mouth, your words, your hand, and your eyes. We're supposed to be, as Christians by the Spirit, in command of all of that. That is not supposed to be in command of us. That's what it is to be temperate. That's what it is to be an overseer. Someone that can properly care for other people. And Titus has this mission, being sent to different places in Crete, different churches, to appoint people, which means he has to be able to read people and he has to have an ability to look at people and to discern who they really are. Because if he appoints the wrong people, he's going to be in trouble. He's going to be responsible. That's why you cannot be quick to put people in a position just because you have needs. We got to be real cautious. So going back to the qualifications, if a man is blameless, that speaks of his moral character. The husband of one wife, having faithful children. If the dude hasn't even led his own children to Christ, if he's not even discipling his own children, how can he disciple people in the church? The home is the breeding ground of leadership. And leadership also is hospitality was one of the requirements for New Testament leadership. Why? Because they didn't have church buildings and service teams. So that means that they cooked, they cleaned up, they taught, they preached, they loved, and they poured their life out. That's different than me hiring people to serve you. That's different than serving you. I remember Pastor Jason one day, he invited us, Sarah and I, to a barbecue at his house. And we were there, beautiful house, right on the water. And we walk in, and I'm watching him. He's grilling for everybody. And I was just like, whoa. That really hit me hard. Because he can really afford to pay someone to grill. But that does not demonstrate what he's trying to impart and model to the people. Anything that you expect from people, you have to model for the people. To the people. That's the essence of parenting. Changing the diapers and feeding, that's easy. What's difficult is when you're modeling something for the people and the people are not feeling the model. Anyway. All right. For there are many insubordinate and idle talkers and deceivers, especially those of the circumcision. Paul is defining the opposition. You have to know what you're up against. What are we up against as a culture? It's not really as a culture laziness. There are some lazy people, but this is not a lazy group of people. What we're up against is busyness, anxiousness, ambition. We got to get somewhere. We got to get something. We got to do something. That's what we are. That's one of the things that we have to watch out for within. That's the spirit that's in the air here. When I say here, I'm not talking about specifically the church. I'm saying in the region that we're living in, you have ruling territorial mammon. You have a huge part of the GDP of the whole world is in this tri-state area. Isaac could probably tell you the real numbers. But I'm saying it's true. I've seen it. Okay, Paul is defining the opposition to Titus. Titus was sent to confront what could and was hurting the church. Shepherds must have the courage to confront what could hurt the sheep. The same way, when you have a little kid, your kids, they're crazy. They pick up Legos, they want to swallow things, Elijah used to lick the wall, lick the door, like what are you doing, bro? And then they get stuff, they want to put it in their mouth. They get into a season of everything is in there. It's like they're tasting everything. And you got to fight with them sometimes. Like you whack them and grab it and pull it out of their mouth. Like you can't do that. And that's how sheep are. Because for some reason, we want what is not good for us. You ever notice that? You ever have like a craving for like Sour Patch Kids or something? Or like a bag of Doritos. Oh, that's awesome. I'm not judging you. Or just like, you just want to eat a whole bag of Doritos or something? We don't get that craving for strawberries. That shows you that even our taste buds are not sanctified. We want things that are not good for us. That's the human condition. And as a father or as a mother, right, or as shepherds or as Christians, one of the things that we want to do for people is not let people harm themselves when it's in our power. Now, we're not responsible for people's decisions, but if we can help stop, a situation, we want to kind of step in. And Titus was sent to confront the things that were dangerous to the church. Watch he's going to address their motives. Who subvert mouths must be stopped, whose mouths must be stopped, who subvert whole households. This was like people kind of going in doing house meetings. Teaching things which they ought not. For the sake of what? Dishonest gain. People with bad motives will try to take advantage of good people. And if you've been around church for a long time, you've seen it. That's all I'm going to say. Now, he's going to address the culture. One of them, a prophet of their own, said, Cretans are always liars, evil beasts, lazy gluttons. This testimony is true. Therefore, rebuke them sharply. He didn't say gently. Sharply. That they may be sound in faith. Paul explains that there are Jewish believers who are actively corrupting the church. He exposes their motives as being greed and tells Titus to rebuke them sharply, rigorously, and relentlessly. If this is not paternal, I don't know what paternal is. Because I don't know why this happens, but something will get into the mind of one of your children. Hopefully it doesn't happen to you. Hopefully it's just me. And you could get into a couple-hour battle where the rebuking is sharp and relentless because you're battling for something that is not true, and the lie that they're believing is trying to hurt them and infect your whole environment. Paul is telling Titus, rebuke these people sharply, not to hurt them, to help them so that they would be sound in doctrine. Why? Because it's a battle for ideas, because ideas are what control minds. It's what shapes words. It's what shapes cultures, environments. Rebuke them sharply. The sharp rebuke, again, it's not to harm them, but to make them sound, so that they would be well or healthy in doctrine. Sound doctrine, good decisions. Just because you have sound doctrine does not mean you will make good decisions. However, if you have sound doctrine, you are empowered to make good decisions. Can you still make bad decisions? Yes, but at least you know they're bad decisions. If you don't know better, then you're acting out of ignorance. And also, which we're going to get to in a minute or two, how you deal with ignorance is different than how you deal with people who are willfully trying to cause harm. Now, Paul talks, and he uses a cultural generalization about Cretans because that environment has been shaped over the course of a long period of time through dysfunction. So much so that Paul is saying this is true, and their own people said it about them. If we said that nowadays, that would offend people. People would cancel Paul. Paul would not be welcome in most churches because he's going with a cultural generalization. Nowadays, we would say, this is racist. You know what Paul said? This is true. Rebuke them sharply. Why? Because if you don't correct what is wrong, it will never become right. You don't bring change through passivity. You don't bring change and transformation through compromise. You have to confront that thing. And those of you who are parents, you either know or you're going to know that this will require rigor and a relentless, like a full court press, where the guys are jumping, they don't even want you to pass the ball in. They're like, that's what it will require sometimes to press ideas, lies, darkness out of the environment, because there is a battle for hearts and minds and homes and families. And Christians are not immune. What Paul is talking about is explicitly believers. Believers who are Jewish and believers who are Cretan. And we have to be more Christian than we are Cretan. This testimony is true. Therefore rebuke them sharply, that they may be sound in faith, not giving heed to Jewish fables and commandments of men who turn from the truth. To the pure, all things are pure, but those who are defiled and unbelieving, nothing is pure, but even their mind and their conscience is defiled. They profess to know God, but in works they deny Him, being abominable, which is detestable, disobedient, and disqualified from every good work. The 3 Ds. Abominable is detestable, disobedient, and disqualified. And the enemy, what is he trying to do? He's trying to attack the mind of the church so that people do not engage in doing good. We're almost done. We don't deal with someone who is wrong because they are ignorant the same way we would deal with someone who is wrong motives and is trying to hurt the people of God. I'm going to say that again. We don't deal with someone who is wrong because they are ignorant the same way we deal with someone who has the wrong motives and is trying to hurt the people of God. We don't deal with false prophecy the same way we deal with a false prophet. A false prophecy could be a sincere believer who is learning to prophesy who is making a mistake. That's different than a false prophet who's conjuring up false prophecies to extort and manipulate people. So you have to, the same way, for example, I'll use children because it's the season. If one of my kids hurts my kids by accident, okay, then I'm going to console the one who is hurt. If one of my kids hurts the other one on purpose, that person is getting spanked, and then the other person is getting consoled. We're going to stop the evil, and we're going to then comfort. So you cannot deal with each situation the same. And this is why discernment is critical in leadership, because you have to know, what are you dealing with? Are you dealing with someone who is wrong? Like, for example, Apollos. Apollos did not know the full way of salvation. He only knew the whole John the Baptist preaching of repentance. But when he met Aquila and Priscilla, they explained to him more fully the gospel. They didn't treat him like a false prophet or a false teacher. They informed him in where he was ignorant. So how we handle people is very, very, very important. We don't deal with false teaching the same way we deal with a false teacher. Almost anyone who has stood in a pulpit has said things that are wrong. I know I've said things that make me cringe. I've written things that make me cringe. I've done things that make me cringe. And so the question becomes not, did we make a mistake? The question becomes, when we are corrected, do we respond correctly? Learning how to confront and correct is essential to pastoring. You go, well, I'm not a pastor. Well, hold on. You're sent into the workplace to guide, to lead by example, to encourage, to nurture, to protect. So you have a pastoral role in the life of people. And if you want to pastor people into the kingdom, how you care for and how you treat people is essential. This is not a skill that you just learn if you get a paycheck from a church or a ministry. This is something that all of us have to learn how to handle people. Remember, Christ-like character in Christian leaders is a prerequisite for leadership. When Titus referenced bishops and elders, what was the first reference? Blameless. Then it dealt with the marriage. Then it dealt with the children. Then it dealt with the behaviors in the household. Then it dealt with hospitable and all those other things. It dealt with the relationship with family, with relationships, with resources, with money, with anger. All of those things are either qualifiers or disqualifiers. And when I say disqualifier, I don't mean like, oh, you were angry before so you can never be a leader. No, it's just you have to work these things out, but not on other people. That's another place where we work things out with our family. And that's not easy for them or for you. The purpose of preaching is to reveal and demonstrate Christ. This is important. Anytime someone stands here, that's what this is about. If that's not being communicated, we have a problem. That is explicitly what this is about. Jesus. I have to say that. As a pastor, elder, and bishop, feeding, caring for, protecting, and correcting the sheep is the vocation of a shepherd. So whether you're serving as a deacon, whether you're becoming a faithful member, whether you're in the marketplace and you're representing the Lord there, you want to think of yourself as someone who is shepherding people toward the good shepherd. So is my words putting Jesus on display? Is the way that I walk, is that showing people Christ-likeness? In other words, if people would look at my life, would they say, hey, I see the reality of Jesus in his life, or I see some other skewed thing? We're supposed to be following him, and if we're following him, that means that'll lead people to who? Him. So this is a very important. Now, when we're caring for people, who are we caring for people as a representative of? Him. That's right. All right. Good night.